Hi, it's
How
so
you
nice to
doing?
see you.
It's good to see you.
Are you in a yurt?
I You nailed it. I am.
I love a good yurt. Where is your yurt? Where in the world are you?
Where in the world? It's a great question I ask myself every day. This is a result of my property getting wiped out by a fire.
Oh, I'm
Um,
so sorry.
that's okay. It's manifested into amazing opportunities. So I threw this thing up, got it off the grid, designed it inside, and it's going to be the future guest house. So
Wow. What do you mean off
uh,
the grid?
I have power systems and everything else, so I don't have I'm not tied into the normal grid.
Got it. And is
So
that for like the now situation or is that for like potential calamity on the way?
it's just to exercise sovereignty, I think,
Mhm.
and there's no reason. I'm connected to a bunch of advised on a bunch of clean energy technologies and stuff. So it just so happens I know a lot of how to bring a lot of energy sources beyond water, beyond power, or beyond solar and wind. So yeah, the whole property is going to be fully powered by.
And what kind of clean energy are you most excited about these days, or what are you advising on?
Oh man, uh, it's it's a rabbit hole, but one is a plasma reactor, and one's a cryo reactor. So I'll explain the one. The first one is taking air in, and then it peels off the nitrogen, which is one of the highest sources in the air. So it peels off the nitrogen, liquefies the nitrogen on demand, which then creates, it's very cold. And then it expands because it wants to expand. And when it expands, we capture that differentiation when it expands, and you gobble up all of that power. So everything's transitory. It's in a phase change. So
Mhm.
it's just utilizing phase change and gobbling up all the power. And so it's the source of energy is air. And plus that cold becomes a desiccant wall and creates clean water when
Mm.
humidity hits it. Plus it becomes an HVAC because it's cold. So then you can blow that into your house. And yeah,
And that's
so
called the plasma energy, or that's a different one?
that's the cryo unit. So that's
That's
using
cryo.
cold, and then the plasma is on the opposite end. You're using heat as a phase change. So very little power input you can create through some different chemistry of elements. You can create a lot of big heat source,
Mhm.
and then that big heat source, you can then that power generation, that plasma reaction, that's the phase change on that side. So we can use heat, and we can clean water with that. We can do all kinds of things, as well as just, and then we have gravity systems. So it's you can push weight up a mountain with very little energy, and then get a times 10 factor of the gravity coming down with that weight. So it's a big conversation, but that's kind of where I'm going. Um,
You mean like professionally or personally or both?
all of the above. I
Hmm.
can't help myself.
Yeah.
The impetus of, I've been dabbling into those areas for most of my life, but now having some very deep relationships in that area, so we're trying to scale many of those systems in many different ways. So
Wow. Thank you so much for doing that. If I can fan your flame in any way, please let me know.
well, thank you. And yeah, it's time. I mean,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
what else
it's
are we gonna do?
it's bloody time. I mean, water, power, food, shelter, freedom. It's in internal, external, everything. So,
Mhm.
but anyway, I am so excited to talk with you because I just, you got me when I read "No one cares if you're good at meditation. Everyone cares if you're good at life." And I was like, man, isn't that true? Right? Don't we all know of the teacher that has meditated for 40 years, and then you're like, okay, well, All
You're
right.
still sleeping with all your students. You still seem like kind of a dick. How's that meditation going for you?
I love that you went right there with it, because I mean, I don't know how many times I've met those kind of people. I've seen those. I was just having this conversation about, through my 20s, navigating the spiritual awakening, but also navigating the spiritual worlds of, bhakti yoga and Hinduism and I was in Bhutan and like all of these places, and then willing to kind of do the blue collar work. And there was a moment when I was studying with these Native American shamans, medicine men in Colorado for years. And then finally, I was looking at the whole crew and I was like, they haven't changed at all. Like, and it's just all kind of, the energy's all messed up. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like I extract
I
what
mean,
I
the crew
get.
of people that you were studying with, or the
Yeah.
shamans you were working with, or
Yeah.
both?
Both. It's kind of like this, you gain the gifts that you were given, and then hopefully you take those. But yeah, so I really love what you said there. And, and we'll dig into that through the mindfulness, the meditation, and the manifestation. It's just, number one, I thank you for doing the work you're doing, and bringing it into what I feel is a pragmatic way of integration, right? Of expressing. That's what I take from it, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. But so how I'm now so curious, how did you get to what kind of that slice of your uniqueness? How did you get to your practice and then be able to share it? Like, what happened to you where you saw
Who hurt you? Who hurt you?
Well, so listen, I mean, we all, like, some form or fashion, right? But I don't know. So how did you get to your awareness about what you're doing?
Yeah.
By the
So
way, I love just saying the name, so I got to say it. Ziva, like Ziva Meditation. I love it. It's like,
thanks for saying it right out of the gate. Yeah, Ziva meditation. It's Ziva is a Sanskrit word that means bliss, but it's also a Hebrew name that means one who's radiant or kind. And so I just think inside of the word, it just feels good to say it. It like has an invocation around it. And, like, that's why we're doing this stuff, to create more bliss, more radiance, more kindness. Because again, like, no one cares how many or few thoughts you're having when you're sitting with your eyes closed. Nobody cares actually what style of meditation that you're doing. Everyone cares how your sleep is, how's your sex drive, how's your immune system, how's your creativity, how's your innovation. Like, we're living in a time where innovation is paramount, where your ability to adapt as a human is paramount. I mean, how much has the world changed in the last year and a half? And we're just getting started. Like, climate change hasn't even really like showed her face yet. She's just like given us like the tiny little, this is like the ushers performing in the aisles before the overture, before the warm-up act. And so it's like, we're going to have to adapt. And so I really think that the single marker of human success, I mean, besides, the basics, food, water, energy, which thank you for working on that, is going to be our ability to adapt. But that's all sort of future facing. Past facing, I used to be on Broadway 10 years. The thing I wanted to do since I was a little girl, and we all have that one goal that we're like, oh, once I achieve this, then I will be happy. Right. And so I got it, thankfully, at a very early age, at 22, 3 weeks after I got my Broadway debut, saddest I'd ever been. Because I was really in that, like, I'll be happy when syndrome. And so when it felt like my goal had been taken away from me, and then I didn't know what to work towards. So I was actually more interested in the happiness of pursuit than I was the pursuit of happiness. But I didn't really know that yet. I just thought next show, next boyfriend, next job, next zero in the bank account, and did that rat race that we're also familiar with for about 10 years. And then my last Broadway show was a chorus line where I was understudying 3 of the lead roles. So like, you show up, you have no idea which character you're playing. Sometimes I would switch from one to the other. Constant stress, constant anxiety, started going gray in my 20s, insomnia for 18 months, which is brutal. Getting sick, getting injured. So here I am living my dream. It's actually a nightmare. And then I found meditation, and it cured my insomnia on the first day of my first class. I slept through the night for the first time in 18 months. I did not get sick for 8.5 years after learning. I stopped going gray. I'm 42 now, and I think I'm in better shape now than I was actually when I was dancing on Broadway in my 20s. But I say most dramatically is my performance started changing. Like instead of being on stage being a needy actress of like, please love me, please like me, which is unwatchable, I started to be able to like plug into the very source of fulfillment, to the source of creativity, and use my art form as a means by which to deliver fulfillment. And that changed everything. So I was like, all right, I got to know more about this thing. So I left Broadway. I went to India. I started what became a 3-year training process to teach. I was not in India that whole time, but my training process was very intense. And then I started Ziva. And since graduating, I've taught almost 50,000 people how to do this stuff on their own. And that's one of the things that I'm really proud of is that, I mean, I think apps serve a purpose in the marketplace. Like I think apps are like a great gateway drug and they get people started. But at the end of the day, it's an addiction model. It's like, I got to keep coming back to my phone. I'm tethered to electronics in order to unplug, which doesn't make sense to me. And one of the things that's unique about what I do and what I'm really proud of is that Ziva trains people to do this stuff on their own. So you don't need Wi-Fi or headphones or binaural beats or a dude playing drums in your ears in order to meditate. It's like you just close your eyes and then flood yourself with dopamine and serotonin, which are bliss chemicals. So the first like 6 years of my career, I was just teaching meditation. And then I realized that meditation alone is not enough because like too high of a percentage of my students were starting and then quitting. And I was just like befuddled. I was like, I don't understand how you can get the keys to the kingdom and then put them down. I was like, this is literally the thing that everyone's looking for. Like all that money, all those girls, all those jobs, everything we're looking for is actually right here. And I just gave you the key to unlock it inside of yourself. Why the fuck are you not doing it? And so I don't know if I can curse on here, but we can bleep that out.
Do whatever you want.
Okay. And so I started asking deeper questions, like what's actually going on? Like, I know you say you're busy, but for real, like, why are you not meditating? And what I realized is that it was people's resistance, that this meditation thing is not about, it's not about relaxing. It is not about quieting the mind. This will be on my gravestone. You know, like you said, we meditate to get good at life, not to get good at meditation. The mind thinks involuntarily, just like the heart beats involuntarily. So basically I was like, why are you quitting? And one is that people thought that they were failing, right? Because they thought they had to clear their mind, but that's actually more people that weren't starting. But the people who are quitting, it's that the meditation is wringing them out. And it was like detoxing them from a lifetime of accumulated stress and sadness and trauma. And they weren't really like equipped or trained to deal with that detox. And that's really when I created the Ziva technique, because I was like, there has to be a buttressing. There has to be almost like the appetizer and the dessert on the main course if we're really going to set people up to do something that they've been trained to do the opposite of their whole lives. So like most of us have been trained since infancy to not feel our feelings, right? Have a bottle, have a toy, have an iPad, have some pills, have some Xanax, have some Facebook, but don't feel. And now the meditation comes along and starts wringing people out, and they're not really equipped or trained or warned to know that this stuff can happen. So it's like, this is where we need the mindfulness piece, where we have to give people like a runway in, and then also tools to lean into the sensation when that detoxification happens. So that's the first piece of mindfulness. But then the manifesting was really speaking to high achievers and high performers, because that's who I tend to attract and work with. And it's like, I wanted them to be able to hook this steam engine that is meditation up to their dreams. And that to me is the point of manifesting, where it's just setting your core strategic objectives for your life.
Yeah. Cause we're not geared to sit in the cave and just hang out. Right.
That's right.
Certainly not the activation that's going on in the world right now. Yeah. Right. So
and that's an interesting point, because a lot of people in this day and age are doing styles of meditation that were made for monks, for people who were actually bred and designed to sit in caves. But it's less than 1% of the world's population that is monastic by nature. And so if you're not a monk and you're trying to do monk meditation, you're going to feel like you're failing pretty quickly. And that's why the whole world thinks that meditation is hard, because they're trying to clear their mind. They're trying to focus. They're trying to sit still for hours and hours. It's like, dude, you're not a monk. You're a householder. You like having sex. You like making money. You like being in society. So let's use mental techniques that are optimized for your nervous system and not for someone who is naturally reclusive.
Right. And I love, let's unpack the differences, because we hear these terms all the time, mindfulness, and the way, at least your one liner around that, which I really like and kind of intuitively get, to rid yourself of stress now, right? To deal with the now, with something's going on, I'm out of control, I'm overwhelmed with the situation. Like, okay, so unpack mindfulness for me and position it in a way that what you have positioned it for, to then build up from that meditation to that next step of that
Yeah.
manifestation, or from the meditation to manifestation.
Yeah. So where this gets tricky and I think confusing for folks is that most people are using the terms mindfulness and meditation as synonyms,
Right.
and they're just interchanging them. And I would define them as very different things. I would define mindfulness, like you said, the art of bringing your attention to the present moment. And it's very good at handling your stress in the now. Going through a breakup, boss yells at you, get into a fender bender, your cat pukes all over your new rug. You're just like, oh, there's like an annoying, like quote unquote stressful day. Mindfulness will be very good in all of those instances. It's good at creating a state change. And interestingly, that's what almost all of the quote unquote meditation apps are. They're teaching what I would call mindfulness, which is, again, the art of coming into the now. So anytime you're focusing, concentrating on your breath, visualizing, anytime your left brain or prefrontal cortex are engaged, anytime you are consciously focusing, I would define that as mindfulness. Again, very good at handling your stress in the now, state change. But we at Ziva use that as the appetizer. That's like the warm up to the main course of meditation. And this is a really important point. This style of meditation is all about getting rid of your stress from the past. And people are like, what do you mean I can't have stress from my past? Like when I was 12, I'm not feeling that anymore. It's like, well, you might not be feeling it, but it is stored in your cellular memory. Now we even know it's stored in your epigenetic memory, which is what you've inherited and what you will pass down to future generations. And it's really important that we clean house, because otherwise, we can pass down stress from at least 2 generations. Some people are hypothesizing 7, but we've been able to prove 2. So the difference here, mindfulness, you're focusing, you're concentrating, you're guiding your breath, but that left brain is involved. Versus this style of meditation, it feels more like a nap sitting up, and you're giving your body rest that is 5 times deeper than sleep, which is a big deal. And we know that because your heart rate slows, your body rate, heart rate slows, body temperature cools, and everything just sort of slows down and de-excites. When you de-excite something, you create order. When you create order in your body, this lifetime of stress that we have stored in our cellular memory can start to come up and out. And the reason why this is such a big deal is because if you remove the stress in your cells from your past, this is what allows you to start to perform so much better. This is what improves your sleep, your sex drive, your immune function. This is what reverses your body age. This is what can increase your IQ by up to 12 points. And so it's not just like a state change. Meditation is creating a trait change, healing you on a cellular level. And that's why I keep saying we meditate to get good at life, because it's really after a few weeks of practicing this style where you start to see like, oh yeah, my sleep is way better. My to-do list used to take me 7 hours, now it takes me 3. That decision that I was deliberating over and torturing myself about for 3 months, I just made it in 30 seconds. And that's to say nothing of the like serendipity and flow and all of the esoteric stuff that we can't really scientifically prove yet.
But definitely happens. And so would you say, like, I love this because it's redefining that which, there's a million different types of meditation. There's a million different interpretations. It's not close to the interpretations of love and all of that, but it's certainly a cousin to, like, people just don't know what the hell that really means. They're like, some people think it's shutting the mind off, and some people think it's just kind of going to sleep. Some people think it's a guided thing. Some people, like you said, it's a sort of mindfulness. So what the hell is it? So, and I love this, that what do you think then is because to me, I definitely have found myself in many meditative states, and I kind of get off on different things, and I kind of get in programs sometimes, and I jump out of it, and I go through routines and I jump out of it. I'm getting to my question, I swear, but
I'm enjoying the journey.
There's so much to this, because I'm definitely a doer on the one hand.
Yeah.
Like I definitely create space every day like clockwork. I have to. Ever since I was a junior in college, I woke up at 4 a.m. I got intoxicated with that time of the day. I meditate, I journal, and I'm doing it, and now 35 years later, I'm still doing it. So I am drawn into the space of that space. What is the percentage? You probably know, like 80% plus of what we're doing throughout the day is just this automation based on our past programming. So who the hell is running the ship? All of this past stuff, we don't have the space to actually realize that we have other choices, right? So in this is a very powerful, I think, like you said, a different way of looking at it, but maybe the most accurate way of looking at it. And that is, what if you can give some nuggets, how is that state then cultivated in your idea of meditative space to then, uncork that past and start draining sometimes the swamp that we're carrying around with us?
Yeah, it's so funny that you said swamping or drain the swamp, because I've recently started living with Regina Thomashauer, also known as Mama Gina. And I don't know if you've heard of her, but she's amazing. She's an icon in the women's, pleasure space. And she has a technique called swamping, which is all about leaning into the darkness, leaning into the rage, the grief, the trauma, and physicalizing it. And for her, she sprinkles in turn on. She like wants people to get in their erotic pleasure to sort of transmute the rage or the grief. And the way she says it is like, rage by itself is a combustible fuel source, it's a combustible energy source. It's powerful, but it's a pollutant. But if you start to sprinkle in turn on, then you can turn it into clean energy. And I was like, oh, that feels so accurate.
Right. Interesting. Because it's energy, right? It's certainly energy.
Yes.
But it's been guided in this certain way.
Yeah. And energy either creates or it destroys. Right. And so like sexual energy is the most creative energy. So like sprinkling in that turn on, it transmutes it into this thing that you can start to move around, versus if you're in rage or grief, you're usually debilitated and, like you said, running those old patterns. It's like, well, I'm stuck in fight or flight, or I'm fighting with you unnecessarily because I haven't taken the time to actually fully feel what's going on or fully acknowledge the things that I've inherited, or the things I've experienced in my past. So what Ziva does, and so Ziva's like our technique is like the 3 M's, right? Mindfulness, meditation, and manifesting. So we've talked about mindfulness. I use that in 2 ways. One is like the warm up. So like gives people something to do. You said you're a doer. Mindfulness, you're doing something, right? In my technique, we're going through our 5 senses, but you're still using your left brain realm of thinking. But then it's like a little trick, right? It's like I'm giving a toddler a new toy to play with. And as you're sort of doing, but now you're like, what am I hearing? What am I feeling? Then the meditation almost creeps up sort of sneakily. And when people do my training, either online or in person, I give people a tool, which is, it's like a de-excitation tool. And it's either a meaningless sound or a Sanskrit sound that they would very gently think, and they're not repeating it. They're not focusing on it. This is not japa meditation. They're not focusing on it. It's just a tool. It's an anchor, really. And mantra, that word has been very hijacked by the wellness industry. People think that mantra means affirmation nowadays. Like, I deserve abundance and it's miracles for me every day, or just whatever. I'm the
it's on my mirror. So
what's that?
It's on my mirror. That's my manifestation, that's my mantra. It's on my mirror. So
yeah, it's like, but and so I'm saying that those are affirmations, right? Exactly. Versus mantra is a Sanskrit word,
right.
And man means mind and trut means vehicle. So a mantra is quite literally a mind vehicle. And the whole point of it is to take you from this left brain realm of thinking and move you into these right brain realms of being. So you're actually going beyond the left brain and into the right. You're transcending the realm of thinking and moving into the realm of being. And so where the magic happens is when you start to access this verifiable 4th state of consciousness, different than waking, sleeping, or dreaming. And in this 4th state of consciousness, if 2 really important things happen. One, you're giving your body rest that, like I said earlier, is 5 times deeper than sleep. And that's not insignificant, because when you give your body the rest that it needs, it knows how to heal itself, not just from the stress from today, but from all your stress from the past. And over time, that's what allows you to perform better and better and better. That's what makes your brain and body sharper. So that's a really important piece, the rest. The other thing that's happening is that the right and left hemispheres of the brain start to function in unison. Now, this is an oversimplification, but left brain we think of as critical mind, past, future, analytical, math, balancing your checkbooks, directions. Super important for being a human, but most of us have been spending 90% of our lives in our left brain. Meanwhile, we have this whole other 50% of our brain, which is about intuition and listening and music and connectedness and improv. And that part of most people's brains is atrophying. And so I don't think that nature makes mistakes. I don't think that nature would have given us 50-50 if it wanted us using 90-10. And that's why this practice feels like magic, is because you start to use this other 50% of this magnificent machine, and then you start to feel like a superhuman. And it's like, who doesn't want to feel like a superhuman? And we're all running this one-legged race when we could be running on both legs. So over time, the meditation starts to thicken and strengthen something called the corpus callosum, which is the bridge between the two hemispheres of the brain, which, like, let's just pause on that for a second. It's like, wait, you mean by sitting in a chair and quote unquote doing nothing, I could change the white matter in my brain? Yes, yes. And I just have like threw this one out there, but you can also increase your IQ by 12 points, not to mention reverse your body age by 15 years. So it's like, y'all, we have this medicine inside of us. These technologies have been around for thousands of years, and yet we've all convinced ourselves that we're too busy to do it. And that's why I get so passionate about this stuff. Because I'm like, no one is too busy to meditate. That would be like saying I'm too busy to sleep. It's like, well, guess what happens when you don't sleep? You turn into an idiot. You turn into a sick, slow idiot.
You might as well be drunk. Yeah.
That's driving drunk. Is that what you said?
Yeah. It's like, it's equivalent, and people haven't slept. That's literally like they're drunk.
By the way, I'm not drinking wine. I'm drinking sparkling water and kombucha, just in case people are watching the video.
Listen, there's nothing like kombucha in a wine glass.
It just makes me feel so fancy.
I am a big fan. It's like those celebration days are just like, and it's something about it, because I don't like drinking at all, but something about a kombucha like that in a wine glass. Yeah.
For me, like 90% of drinking is about the glass. And so I was like, I'm getting the sugar fix. I'm getting the bubble fix. I get my glass fix. Yeah. I'm 90% of the way there.
Getting the tickle. You're getting the tickle of the bubbles. Come on. I was intoxicated at one point with bhakti yoga, right? So call and response, because it would that the mantra and the songs, the Sanskrit would just completely take me, right? And massage my being. So I'm a massive fan, and I don't want to, I've never written out affirmations. Like, I don't want my brain going off in these little feeble attempts at the infinite, right? It's like, it's like, my God, like I want that space. And I think what you're bringing up is so important. I just think of space, right? When you're allowing your brain to open, or let's just acknowledge the brain is the most complicated thing on the planet, right? Period. Like, it is the most complex system ever. And if we can actually go back to these things and actually improve it, and know we're improving it, and then it improves our entire body, then why wouldn't we? And I love that you're making this connection, because I think, certainly I'm a push and pull kind of person, like power versus force. Like, no, I'm just going to force. Like, I've struggled with that all my life. Like, that's what I want. I'm going to go after it, and I'm going to be, impaling myself if I have to in order to achieve that. And as of recently, on and off, but now I'm just like letting go, and finding that space. And so what's the difference between yours and like TM?
Mhm.
transcendental, because I know they have a like grab a little phrase, a little thing or whatever that doesn't really mean anything to you and all of that stuff. What would you say is the difference, at least
Yeah.
in this part? Because
Yeah.
your three pillars are different,
Mhm.
but what is the difference, do you think, in your part of TM?
Yeah. I will happily answer that. And I definitely want to circle back to the space piece and the power
Mm.
versus force, because that's fascinating to
Please,
me.
please,
Um,
because I still do
uh,
that.
but as far as, so a lot of people think that TM is a style of meditation, but it's actually the name of a company. So it's like a multinational organization, just like I'm from the South. So if you're Southern and somebody wants a soda, they'll just be like, can I have a Coke? You know, it's just like all soda. All right, cool. Do you want Coke or Sprite? Right. And so it's like we will use the brand name to mean all of the sodas. And because TM was sort of one of the first people in the game back in the 60s, they became quite ubiquitous with meditation and with a style. So it is the name of a company that's done a lot of good. Millions of people have learned to meditate through them. And a lot of people will do TM and then come to Ziva and say, like, whoa, like this, having the 3 M's or having the mindfulness and the meditation, I just feel more held, or it feels like there's more spaciousness to be me. It doesn't feel as dogmatic, or it feels just like a little bit more open, I guess. But there are similarities from the meditation portion in that they are both, you're moving beyond the realm of thinking into the realm of being. And there aren't that many practices like that. Like very slow, like Qigong is actually one of the only other self-induced transcendence practices. So there are similarities there, but, and there, I should say that when I teach, you can learn with me face to face. I have a studio in New York, and I used to travel quite a bit and teach. But now what most people do is Ziva Online, and that's like our 15-day course. That's our most popular training. And with that, the mantras are, what I do is that I train people on a protocol on how to choose their mantra from like a very specific list. So there's some differences there. Also, I'm really partial, but I think our community is really amazing. They're just like fun, creative, high performers.
That's amazing. And I just want to say for everyone listening that you've been kind enough to give everyone like a 3-day dive into that 15-day program. So we'll put the links in the show so people can have a little teaser taster at the 3 M's and enjoy that. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
awesome. Thank you for mentioning that. And you don't have to like put any credit cards or anything. It's just like, it's really like our gift. It's like, I think that once people start and once they actually do the training, they're going to be like, whoa, like give this to me. Like this is the key to the kingdom. So, you know, my game here is to get as many people meditating as possible. Okay. So back to the power versus force piece, because I consider myself a recovering control freak. And yeah.
Me too.
And, you know, like since I was 8, I was like, I'm going to be on Broadway. I'm going to be on Broadway. I'm going to be on Broadway. And then I did it. By the time I was 22, I made it to Broadway. And it takes a lot of work to do that. It's a very competitive industry. You have to be top of your game in singing and dancing and acting. And then just all of the energetic components to be able to like fill a room, to fill a 3,000 person theater. So there's a lot of emotional and spiritual and mental work that happens even as a performer. But once I found meditation, it's like I realized that I could take my foot off of the gas because I was plugging in to this very different, much more sustainable energy source. It was like I was actually trusting that nature had my back. And the analogy that I like to use here is that we as humans sort of think that we have our hands on the wheel of our lives. We think that we're in control, but really we're like the little kid in the grocery store driving that plastic car on the front of the shopping cart when mom's like, look how cute, that little kid thinks he's driving. And I feel like that's what nature thinks about us humans. We're like, look how cute, they think they're driving their lives. And certainly it's not fatalistic, at least not according to me. Like, I don't think that nature's fully in charge, and I don't think that we're fully in charge. I come back to the brain model. Like, I see it as 50-50, meaning that 50% is like you getting up, journaling, meditating, exercising, getting clear on what you want to do that day. But 50% of it is up to nature. And if you're not plugging into that spaciousness, if you're not plugging into that cosmic intelligence and having a conversation, and it's a two-way conversation, you can't just be praying to God all day asking for shit. right? It's like you got to listen to how God wants to use you. And one of those old adages is that prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening. And that sort of brings me to the manifesting piece of Ziva, because if you've just spent that time in that spaciousness and you've de-excited your nervous system and you're able to sort of move beyond that critical mind and start to tap into your own pure being, two things happen. One, you are able to hear your own intuition, which is basically how nature is communicating to us. So you're able to receive the downloads of which I think are like your directions from your boss, right? Like your boss is now nature, and nature's cueing you on how it wants to deliver you, and nature cues you through your desires. But we have to transcend the addictive longings of like, I just need more chocolate. I need more booze. I need more sex. I need more shopping. We have to transcend that and go to the deeper, like inspirational desires, right? And so that happens during meditation, and we are able to communicate to nature our desires. So we are having like a two-way conversation, and that's what happens in the last portion of Ziva. Just in the last 2 minutes, what I recommend that people do is before they open their eyes, they take 2 minutes and they start with gratitude, right? Because nobody likes a friend who only asks for things. Eventually, we'd like to be thanked, so it's like giving thanks for all of the abundance that we're currently drowning in. Let's acknowledge how powerful we already are at manifesting. And then we ask the very simple question, and this is a spoiler alert, this is what you learn on days 13, 14, 15. But the question is simply, what would I love right now? What would I love right now? So simple, but no one's doing it. What we're asking ourselves is, what do I need? What do I want? What's going to look good on Instagram? What's going to make me the most money, from that sort of like drive, achieve place. But if we shift it just a little bit, if we just tune into the deeper desire, to the deeper, like what would bring me the most delight? What would bring the most joy? What would I love? It puts you into present moment. Love puts you into possibility. And then we start to listen for how nature wants to use us. And that, in my experience, is where the magic happens. Because then you're not like inching the shopping cart forward with your plastic car. Like mom's actually now pushing the cart, and you get some real wind in your sails.
That is absolutely, I agree 1,000,000%. And that is, in many ways, I think in my life, I've been trying to communicate something to that effect. And because it's like that listening and that ability to listen is like, I just had this the other day, because again, I fall sometimes into, I really want that, and I'm really going to do that, and I justify it, and then I go for it, and I stop listening. And it was like the universe was like, wait a second, just so you know, everything you want at the deepest level is in the letting go. It's like we all, that is everything. It's the love, it's the expansion, it is the infinite, it is the fulfillment, it is the everything. It's in that letting go. And I just started freaking laughing, because it just dropped away all of the stuff. Yeah, but I want to do this, I want to do that, but that is going to do that. But those are just inefficient routes to that which is underneath it all anyway. And so I'm finally at 50 years old, finally saying, yeah, no, I trust. But it's a constant thing, right? So like, I want to continue to control, I want to continue to, and just that letting go. And I love that. And again, I'm kind of blown away that I'm only getting to know you now, because these are, it's almost a no-brainer that all three of these pillars are together and working in unison, because they're acknowledging us as humans, soul, spirit, human. We're here, we're living our lives. And it's like, I love that those are your questions. Like, how kind are we? How fulfilled are we? Like, how much of life are we loving? Like these kinds of things. Like, let's rewrite the school that the school has failed so deeply on. And this is the cornerstone. Can you imagine? And So it's like, it's so powerful, all this stuff, because I keep now recapitulating all of these events in my life as we're talking. There was one moment where I was sitting with Wallace Black Elk, literally the descendant. He was 87 years old, and it was in a sweat lodge in Colorado. And I remember all of these moments where he was just downloading this incredible information. And he goes, I don't understand why people have their brains on their backs. And he meant kids going to school. And he looked up at the sky in the middle of the sweat lodge, and all of it's right here. It's in this space of nothing, so that we can receive everything. And I was just like, boom. And that's it.
That's it.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And everything you want is so much better and more infinite than you can possibly wrap your head around. And at the same time, I think the deeper desires, you learn more about what you really want, and you get to pursue those and get to have your life. But then listening and course correcting and changing as you're walking in the actionable steps of life, but with this kind of superpower of this direct connection. And I always believe like that direct connection is the most important thing in life, because that's you learning to listen to this language that is only there for you to listen to.
It's so subtle.
Yeah.
You're dancing with the divine. That's what we're learning how to do, is dance with the divine. And the way that you hear the divine is going to be different than the way that I hear it. And that's why it's so ineffable. And that's why everyone's looking for the ABC, like, just teach me how to listen to God. Yeah. And it's like, well, first we have to get quiet enough to hear how God speaks to you. And I know that the G word is triggering for some folks, so you could supplant that. I use nature usually, universe, God, cosmic intelligence, whatever you want to call it. But it is you tapping into something greater than yourself. And many of us are not taught how to do that. And then because all of this stuff in the 3D world is so sticky, it's so attractive. You know, we've got the iPhones now, and the sugar and the alcohol and the pot and the advertising. Like it's you're literally like pulling yourself away from these things that are so loud, so bright, so shiny, is its own masterclass. Just to put that down, to even get to day one of school, of learning how to listen, of learning how God speaks to you. Does that happen through your heart? Does it happen through images? Does it happen through other humans? You know, but reality is it's happening all the time. And I love that your teacher said, I don't know why people put their brains on their backs. It's always here. And as you were talking earlier about everything is in letting go, I had this idea that, you know, I'm a relatively new mom. I have a 3-year-old son, and I've recently gone through a divorce. And I was like, just parenting in general is like a cosmic joke, because it's like, oh, I'm going to give you this thing that you are going to love harder and deeper and richer than you've ever loved anything in your whole life. And then for the rest of your life, they're just going to start needing you less and less and less and less and less. Like just tonight, I was just putting him down for a nap, and my nanny's here as well. Thank God for her, Bisa. She's amazing. And he was like, I don't need mommy or Bisa. And I was like, okay, buddy. He's like, tell Bisa I don't need her. And then she can say, okay. And it's the first time ever. He's 3. He's always wants one of us in there when he's sleeping. And today was the first day ever. He's like, I don't need mommy. I don't need Bisa. And I was just like a single tear. And I was like, okay, buddy.
Wow. That is.
But it's like, it's a lesson in letting go.
Yeah. I've never heard it described that way. And it's absolutely, utterly crazy when you think about it. Like, and it has to happen. And that separation has to happen, a healthy separation for that being, for that soul, to then try to figure out who they are and what they are and what they want to create outside of the, you know, the first kind of masculine, feminine teachers or feminine, it doesn't matter. The first teachers of their life, the cult of the family, was giving them what they knew.
Yeah.
And they have to break those chains at some point, hopefully, so that they.
Yeah, nobody wants like a 40-year-old napping with their mom every day, you know.
not so much. And that mom eventually is going to go, yeah, You got to go. I had a friend of mine whose daughter, they've got very tight family, not enmeshed tight. That's not what I mean, but like a very close, open family to be able to discuss and everything. And they had a daughter going to school this year, and that you could tell, like, the father, who's a big, strong dude, right? Friend of mine for 25 years, broke down. Like, he goes, I didn't even see it coming. Like, basically giving her daughter away to school, and just boom. But at the same time, he goes, and it had to happen. Like, with all the people coming in and the things and all that stuff, they just had to go. Like, so at the same time, he was crushed by the weight of letting his daughter, but and the other side of it, he definitely needed it to happen. So
totally. Like, and I feel like we can extrapolate this out to God. Like, if you want to anthropomorphize God into a parent, which I actually have found to be a really useful exercise, especially once I became a parent, where it was like, anything that is in my power, that is for his highest good, if he expresses a desire to me, I will give it to him. You know, I'm not going to let him eat candy for breakfast, because that's going to be bad for everyone. But if he's like, oh, I want pancakes instead of oatmeal, great, you got it, buddy. You know, if he wants like broccoli instead of cauliflower, no problem. And so if we think about, if we're never communicating our desires to nature, and conversely, we're never listening to nature, then it's like never listening to your parent, and then never asking or telling them what you want. It's just bad communication. Totally. So we want to make sure that we are practicing healthy communication with nature, just like we would any romantic relationship, parental relationship, or child relationship.
Totally. I had this another thing I saw right in front of me. I was studying, I don't know, at some point it was this immersion and consciousness workshop, and I was in San Francisco, and this is directly off of what you just said. They had a son. So I was staying with this couple that was putting on a few people, and I was there at their house, and they let me stay there. And they had a son that was maybe 6 years old. And he came, it was dinner time. And she asked this question, which was a different type of question. He was like, I'm hungry. And she says, what does your body want? So I'm witnessing this whole thing, right? So she said, what does your body want? And he said enthusiastically, ice cream. So she said, your body wants ice cream. Because she didn't say, what do you want? She said, what does your body want? There was the distinction, right? So she gave it to him. Full autonomy. She gave it to him. And so then the next morning, you couldn't even make this up. The next morning, I'm witnessing it again because I'm there. And this little kid, 6, 7 years old, went to his mom and said, Mom, you know, when you asked me what my body want, and I said ice cream, and I ate the ice cream, my body really didn't want that. I don't feel good. And so in that moment, it was the difference between listening to the body, having a communication that was, what does your body want? And teaching that kid the difference between me, and listening to nature through the body. And what would our world be when we picked up anything and said, body, do you want this tea? Yes. Body, what do you want to eat? And start listening to that in that mindfulness kind of way as we move through life, I think is a skill that's distracted quite a bit.
And how old was this kid?
Oh man, he was maybe 6, 7.
Wow, what a gift. I feel I'm going to try that with my son.
Huge.
But like, what a lesson to be like, yeah, okay, so you were confused about what was your body and what was your mind, what was what I would call the addictive longing versus the intuitive desire. Sure. Right. And that's why, like, one of the rules at Ziva, and we don't have really many rules. One is meditate every day, and the other one is you have to follow charm. Right. And so it's like, if you're going to follow charm, you first have to be able to detect charm. And to be able to detect it, you have to sort of move beyond the mind, beyond the addictive longings, and drop into these intuitive desires. But when you hear them, and when nature is giving you a command, your job now is to follow it. And what I found is that if you stop listening to that, like someone else is going to get the book idea, someone else is going to get the movie download, someone else is going to get the job, or you start running up against, deeper and deeper resistance if you don't learn the lessons. That's why it's the only rule is follow charm, but that rule does not apply to non-meditators. Because if you don't have a means by which to move beyond the longing and tap into the desire, or move beyond the ice cream addiction and actually listen to like, oh, my body needs protein, or no, my body needs rest, or, my body needs to fast right now. It usually, and it's not just meditation, but any sort of de-excitation tool or listening tool can help you to detect that, what I would call charm. And just as you were saying that, the other thing that came up is like, when you're like, if we were to ask our bodies, do I want this kombucha? Do I want this chocolate? Does my body want this? Right? Like that also translates into sexuality. And like with body autonomy, like I'm watching so much of this, like, grandma comes over, give me a hug. I need a hug. I'm sad if you don't give me a hug. And it's like, okay, well, what are we teaching this boy who's going to turn into a teenager, who's going to become a man, that it's like, he doesn't want to give a hug right now, but he's being forced to. So it's like, if we're modeling that for our toddlers, it's like, well, then why do we think that they go and engage in this behavior later on? And so I'm really big on consent for him, because he's a tall, smart, white dude, so it's like, he's going to have to really have like super antennas for receptivity. And then I think certainly for people who identify as women, it's like, what does my body want? What does my sex want? Versus, oh, well, let me do this to make someone else happy. So it's like this conversation really has a lot of far-reaching impacts.
Oh man. And it comes down to, again, listening and learning to listen. And then your work then is to take that listening into the world and have boundaries where boundaries need to be, and navigate energies based on your truth. But you don't get to access that if you're running around and buying into this rat race. And that's where, this is an example for everyone listening. This is an example of taking these pauses, taking these times out, this way of timing out, so then you have more access, more space to have what it is that you truly want, even if you don't even know what that is. And that's
what oftentimes nature will do, is that it'll just give you one desire that's just going to take you one step. Like I moved to LA, I went to India and like learned meditation and changed my life. And I just went to India to deepen my own practice to start. And then I moved to LA thinking that I was going to pursue TV and film. And in LA, I ran into a teacher who I'd met in India. And he actually hired me to train him as an actor. And so we started working together one-on-one in that capacity. And then I found out that he was doing a teacher training. So it was just one foot in front of the other, but nature was like, oh, follow this charm, follow this charm. And then, next thing I know, it was like, here we go. I've taught, tens of thousands of people. And it was just checking in. Well, what feels charming right now? What feels charming right now? And where that requires a level of mastery is that, of course, sometimes there's going to be addictions that come up, people pleasing, codependence, sugar, like whatever your stuff is. And that's, part of being human too.
So I think like to close, and I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's a lot of fear that society hasn't been used to before. And it seems to me that your program could be incredibly beneficial for people to step out of the pressed upon fear right now, so they could have more space to maybe help pivot. I'm a big fan of pivoting and creating the future we really want, but really doing it, right? So talk to me about that fear and how that may be able to help people step out of the current, constriction of fear right now, and how they can maybe have more access to more of themselves in this time.
Yeah, thank you for asking that beautiful question. And I've had feedback from so many people that have said, Ziva has been the thing that has gotten me through the past year and a half. This program is the thing that's allowed me to unplug from the news. This program is the thing that's allowed me to, send my kid back to school without being ravaged by anxiety. I had one woman say that she couldn't even leave her house without having pandemic induced anxiety. So it's been a real game changer for a lot of folks. And the thing is that right now, like anything, the news is functioning on an addiction cycle too. So it's like it has to get more and more and more scary to keep you coming back and back. Just like you need more sugar, more pot, more ecstasy. Like you need more of whatever it is to keep feeling the same high. And so what Ziva is going to do is that it's going to allow everyone who engages to start to flood their brain and body with dopamine and serotonin. And those are bliss chemicals. And when your body starts to know that it has access to the actual drug that it's looking for, which is bliss, and when it has access internally and in a repeatable, self-sufficient way, that's what allows all of these other addictions to start to fall away. You stop plugging into the news. You stop thinking that you have to have 3 cups of coffee or 3 cocktails to make it through the day, because you're actually cranking up and on your internal pharmacy. And so that's just the chemical piece of it. But then when you start to feel like, oh, my to-do list that used to take me 5 hours takes me more like 3. Oh, I am more present with my kids. I do want to have sex with my partner again. I am now starting to see the possibilities inside of an ever-changing world instead of clinging to the past or how I think that things should stay. Like those changes are massive. They are not insignificant, and they're valuable, because to your point, it brings us back to the whole reason that we're here, which is the surrender. It's the letting go. It's the trust. It's the present moment awareness. It's like, how much can I savor this blue sky, these clouds, this kombucha, talking to you? Because our bliss is always found in the present moment. And if you don't have a practice like this, it's so much harder to access that bliss in the now. So like you said, if people want to start and they're just like, where do I start? You can just go to zivameditation.com/podcast, and that'll get people started with the first 3 days. And then the training is only 15 minutes a day for 15 days. You'll get the mindfulness, the meditation, and the manifesting. And the coolest part is that once you graduate, you have these tools to take with you for life. And who doesn't want to be self-sufficient? Like, who wants to be plugged into their phone to meditate? It's like having an AA meeting in a liquor store. It's like, eventually we're going to have to cut the cord.
Totally. I love that. Well, thank you. It's been such a pleasure. And I know if everyone's listening, I'm going in, I'm signing up, I'm going to do it. So let's all jump in and get into that space of the infinite together, so that we can help get ourselves out of maybe the pressure and stress of the time and get into a future possibility that we can then create together. So
I love the idea of everyone doing it together. Like you said, meet in the infinite. Let's get more people on team bliss. And then we can go and share that with the people that are on team stress. Right. And so it's like, let's call each other up. Let's wrap them in love instead of everybody fighting about who's right.
totally. Perfect. Emily Fletcher, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Oh my gosh,
great.
it's my pleasure. You're such a depth and wealth of knowledge. Your heart is so big, and I can see your lifetime of work. So I'm really, truly honored to be here. Thank you.